Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Predicted King, a Citylight Council Bluffs Christmas podcast. We'll be reading together the book of Isaiah and connected New Testament passages to see Jesus as Emmanuel, the predicted King.
Isaiah 11, 1 through 10. There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fattened calf together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like an ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. In that day the root of Jesse, who shall stand as a signal for the peoples, of him shall the nations inquire, and his resting place shall be glorious.
Wow. Thank you, Nick. There's so much in these 10 verses. A passage packed full of truth and wonder and predictions and prophecy. There's this shoot that grows out of a stump of a tree, a branch growing from roots. And there's the Spirit of the Lord. 7 descriptions, 7 functions of the Spirit who rest upon this shoot that grows from the stump of a tree. Then Isaiah tells us about this shoot, how this shoot is a man who will judge righteously, fairly, with faithfulness. And because of the Spirit being on him, and because of his fair, faithful judging, this shoot, root, man, he will usher in a kingdom where wolves hang out with lambs, where little calves play with lions, where bears and cows get along, all while little children hang out with them. Little kids playing with snakes and lions and bears and cows. Verse 9 says that the whole earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord, just as much as the waters cover the sea. Totally, completely, thoroughly. And it all wraps up in verse 10 by going back to the root of Jesse, who now stands as a sign for all the peoples of the world, glorious and exalted. There's so much to take in here, so many images in Isaiah's poem, so many promises in his prediction. But today, we focus on the Spirit of the Lord. Isaiah says, the Spirit of the Lord will rest on the shoot from the stump of Jesse. We know this shoot from the stump of Jesse is Jesus, the baby born, whom we celebrate at Christmas. But what does it mean that Isaiah predicts that Jesus, the Son of God, will be born and raised and live and lead as a man who is filled with the Spirit of God?
Luke 4:16-22. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as was his custom, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and he stood up to read. And the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he rolled up the scroll and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. and the eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today the scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." And all who spoke well of him and marveled at his gracious words that were coming from his mouth. And they said, "Is not this Joseph's son?"
Studying these predictions from Isaiah help us see that God is sovereign. He's in control, in charge, directing history down to the smallest of details. Isaiah can predict in vivid detail things that come true 700 years later in the birth of a baby born in a manger because God is sovereign. God is in control, in charge. In this story found in Luke chapter 4, it's clear that God's in control. Jesus goes back home for a visit, goes to the synagogue, and stands up to read. And what scroll is handed to him? The scroll of Isaiah. So Jesus unrolls the scroll and finds the part he wants to read. And that part starts with this line, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me." Jesus is actually reading Isaiah chapter 61 here, but the beginning line is nearly the same as what we read in Isaiah 11. "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him." What makes Jesus stand out from all the other babies born? What makes Jesus stand out from all the other young men who came home to Nazareth for a visit? What makes Jesus distinct and special? Both Isaiah and Jesus answer it for us. Jesus is set apart from all the other babies, boys, men, leaders, teachers, prophets, kings, because the Spirit of the Lord is upon him. God's Spirit had come on people before, guys like Samson or the carpenters who built the temple, prophets like Elijah and Elisha. God's Spirit had come on people before, but it was always temporary, for a moment, a season, just a little while. But now, with Jesus, God's Spirit doesn't merely drop down and then move on. God's Spirit doesn't hang with Jesus only for a moment or season. God's Spirit, as Isaiah says, rest upon him. More on that tomorrow.